Good morning, everyone. Soon to be afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for attending this session. I am Tom Keene. I am the Associate Administrator for Research and Registration with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. And I really appreciate that you are here today to hear about updates to FMCSA's registration system. I do want to mention at the beginning of this session that we are sponsoring two sessions at the 2024 MATS conference. We have a session tomorrow that's a little broader, where we have our acting Deputy Administrator, Sue Lawless, will be here, speaking about various FMCSA initiatives, including an update on various rulemakings. We'll talk a little bit about crash data, what's happening as it relates to the safety of the commercial vehicle sector in terms of crashes, and we'll also be talking about some of our active programs. So I encourage you, if you want to hear a broader look at what's happening at FMCSA these days and ask any questions that you like, please come to that session tomorrow. It's from 10 to 11. And I believe it's right here in this room. So thanks again for attending this session. This session is focused on FMCSA's modernization efforts related to our registration system. So this relates to your initial registration, your MCS 115 updates, any insurance filings, those kinds of things. And with me today is our Director of Registration, Ken Riddle. Ken and his team are very customer service focused for your needs, our stakeholders, the industry stakeholders who need to register, who need to update filings, concerned with the privacy of your information in our system. And obviously we've had a registration system in its current form for many years. And it was robust when it was originally designed and implemented, but it's become very dated over the years, and we need to modernize that registration system. So that's what Ken will focus on today. Ken has been with FMCSA for 9 years, but he had an entire impressive career before coming to FMCSA. Ken was originally commissioned in the Army as a second lieutenant in 1985 from the Citadel in South Carolina, and served more than 30 years in the U.S. Army in various roles, retiring as a colonel. Before he came to FMCSA as our Director of the Office of Registration, and Ken is just a really impressive individual. I know that because I work with him. I have the utmost respect for him. He's going to talk to you today about a whole range of modernization efforts that we're engaged in now, and it's going to require some action by you, but I think as we talk through this, I hope you can appreciate this is for the protection of your information as we move forward to prevent fraud in the system, in the industry. You've heard it, if you were in any of the other sessions this morning, you've heard about the increase in fraud in recent years, and that is of utmost concern to FMCSA, whether it's theft of freight or whether it's stealing identities, things like that. But that is our primary focus here in modernizing our registration system. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Ken. He will present some slides on you or for you about what we are doing. And then after that, I really welcome questions, anything related to registration. If it's beyond registration, we may have to defer it until tomorrow. But please bring your questions after Ken presents, and we'll go from there. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that introduction, Tom. And by the way, Tom is my boss. I work for Tom. It's nice to have your boss introduce you. I do hope I have some good news for you today on our modernization efforts and our efforts to help prevent fraud in the industry. I've got about 12 slides total because I want to leave time for questions at the end. This is our goal in the Office of Registration. It's all about improving the customer experience, not only through a new modernized registration system that we want to streamline the process of registration, make it easier to make updates, but we want a safe, intuitive, and one-stop registration system. but also providing first-class, timely, effective customer service to the CFD industry. And we do that through a call center with over 350 agents at the call center, where we try to keep the wait times low and the answers correct to help you in the industry. I'm going to start with fraud prevention because that's of utmost importance right now. Fraud and freight theft are at an all-time high in the commercial motor vehicle industry. Every corner of the industry is experiencing fraud, whether it be on the carrier side, the broker side, you name it, it's in every corner of the industry. And we have heard from industry. We've heard from drivers. We've heard from carriers. We've heard from trade organizations, trade press about how bad the fraud is. And we've been asked, what can you do to help FMCSA? We can do some things. We can help. So we heard you, we're listening, and we're going to help.
You clear?
We've done a few things
You sure?
around the edges, like suspended online PIN requests. Somehow PINs were being intercepted as we send them to people online, so we shut that down. The only way to receive a PIN number for your account is via mail, the address on file. It's not perfect, but we had to shut down sending PINs across the airways because they were being intercepted. We've introduced multi-factor authentication in front of our systems. That's login.gov. For those of you that have entered the system recently, you had to go through login.gov. That's going to help. For paper applications, we get 27,000 pieces of paper a month into our call center to process. MCS 150s, OP1s, etc. We've started requesting driver's license, copies of the driver's license for any change to an account. Again, to try to help mitigate the fraud. Because fraudulent paper was coming in, changes were being made that should not be made. So now we're requesting a copy of the driver's license. That has its own issues. As soon as we started doing that, the fraudsters started asking for driver's license before they would book a load with you. So that has its issues, but it helped. Preventing bad principal places of business addresses, PPOBs. We've made some changes to our existing system that helps reduce the number of bad addresses that are registered with FMCSA, and the new system will go a lot further towards preventing those bad addresses. And the last thing we're doing, that we've already started, is standing up a fraud registration team. That is a new team in FMCSA in the Office of Registration that will be solely focused on helping mitigate the fraud related to registration activities. But here's what we're getting ready to do, and this is big. This is a change. We're getting ready to introduce identity verification services. This is contracting with a industry-leading provider out there that can provide identity proofing services, where you have to verify you are who you say you are before we allow you to register. And we're in that contracting phase right now. And we're gonna hire the best that we can to help mitigate that. We're not gonna do it ourselves in-house. And I'll show you a little bit of what that looks like. Same thing with the business verification. We're gonna contract for a service that helps verify and validate the business exists. Because people are registering that don't even have a business. Most businesses, all businesses should register with the IRS. So one of the things the business verification will do will reach out to the IRS and validate that the business is registered with the IRS. Now, if you're a sole proprietor, supposed to be registered with the IRS, but may not be. So then we're going to check state credentials, because you have to be licensed with the state, even if you're a sole proprietor. So there will be a multitude of databases that we can go out and check to make sure the business is a legitimate business that actually exists before we allow it to register with FMCSA. That will help mitigate the fraud. We're going to send all new applicants through these services, the identity and business verification services, but we're also going to run all existing registrants. Everybody in our database will have to go through this identity and business verification. over 800,000 registered entities with FMCSA will go through this verification process. If they don't go through it, or refuse to go through it, or don't pass it, revocation proceedings. Okay? So we're going to clean up the bad actors that are in our system now. And that'll be done over a period of time, probably like a 90-day period. We'll say in the next 90 days, and we'll probably have to segment the population because we can't have 800,000 registrants going there all at once. So we'll probably segregate the population and then give you a certain period of time to go through and complete the verification. The good news is we're not going to wait. We can't wait on a new registration system to implement these identity and business verifications. We need to do it just as soon as we possibly can to help mitigate the fraud, to help protect you. And we're doing that. We're working just as fast as we can, and we're not going to wait on a new registration system. These services, when we finish, will be put in front of our existing systems. URS, MICMAS, LNI, in front of our existing systems so we can start combating the fraud soon. We're not going to wait. You're going to see the theme, the first bullet up there, enhanced fraud-resistant security features on just about every slide. That's how serious we are. But that's going to be our #1 priority. 6 months ago, fraud prevention wasn't our top priority in building a new system. Today it is, because we'd heard from all of you and the industry how bad it is and how much help is needed. We're going to streamline the registration process so it is more intuitive and user-friendly. We're going to improve the customer experience and improve the quality of the data. If we can collect better data and industry uses our data, we need to improve the data. It'll have real-time data validation, smart logic, and edit checks. What does that mean? We're going to validate the data that's being inputted in this new system in real time. So if you enter a PPOB in the new system, it's going out and trying to validate that address in real time, and then allowing you to continue in the registration system. Smart logic and edit checks will help reduce mistakes in the initial registration. I can't tell you how many new applicants apply for freight forwarder authority or intermodal equipment provider authority, and that's not what they need. They just misunderstood the description. We're going to make it clearer and make it harder to make mistakes in the new system. It's going to consolidate all the forms into one. You'll go to one place, the new registration system, to make any updates or changes after your initial registration. So it'll support you the full life cycle. And you'll go to one place, and it'll be one form. It won't ask you all the questions. It'll be an online, intuitive form that, based on the answers to the questions, it will present the next question. It won't ask you questions about hazmat if you didn't say you carry hazmat. Okay, so it's going to shorten and streamline the process. We expect, this is a very aggressive timeline. I'm nervous about putting a date out there, but early FY25, early fiscal year 25 is what we're aiming for, to get this new system in place. Again, the identity and business verification is before that. We're working just as hard as we can, as fast as we can. But the new system, it's an enormous effort, Herculean effort. It takes a little bit of time. So we're aiming for early FY25. I probably don't even need to brief this slide. Why do we need a new system? That should probably not be a cassette tape. It probably ought to be an 8-track tape, because that's how old our existing system is. And as Tom pointed out, it's in desperate need of an update. Technology has advanced, technology has changed, and we need to change. So we're going to put it on the latest platform with the latest software. We'll make it high-speed, low-drag. But it's for all those reasons, and I'm not going to go over all those reasons. But everybody here knows we need a new registration system. Here's some of the new capabilities under consideration. There is a rulemaking effort with the new registration system, and we are in the process of writing a rule. So that's why these are under consideration. You will have an opportunity to comment and when the NPRM, notice of a rulemaking, is published, you'll be able to comment on that, and we encourage you to do so. That's when the changes will really be decided, is once that NPRM is published. But here's some considerations as we write the rule. Number one at the top, you saw it on the last 3 slides, security. User-friendly and intuitive, I've already talked about that. Error prevention, make it hard to make a mistake for a new applicant filling out the application. Auto-populate pre-existing information. If we've asked you for it once, we don't want to ask you to fill it in again. If any of you have completed a registration with us recently, you had to put your name and address in about 4 times. It's outdated technology. So you put it in once, and if we need it again, we'll grab it from when you put it in the first time. We're going to automate all aspects of the registration process. If you have to upload supporting documents, you'll have the capability to do so really easily. Again, it's going to go out and check databases and validate information in real time as you're entering it. It's going to prevent duplicates. There'll be ability to query information better. Right now, if I need to get information out of our system, I have to put in a ticket that goes to an analysis team, that goes to a contractor to pull the information that we need out of our system. Number of freight carriers. The new system will allow us to do those queries much easier, much quicker. We're going to eliminate the motor carrier docket number, the MC number. There will only be a US DOT number. That will be the sole identifier for all registered entities. The authorities that you have, that you apply for and are granted to you, will just be listed underneath that US DOT number in our system. Whether it be property authority, plus broker authority, plus freight forwarder authority, they'll all be listed under that US DOT number, but to be a sole identifier. We're going to remove all the arbitrary wait times. Right now, if you have to file a reinstatement, it takes about 3 to 4 days for that reinstatement to take place. We're not real sure why. The current system takes weekends off, we think. We're not sure why the system takes weekends off. It really shouldn't, right? It's an IT system. So the new one's not going to take weekends off. We're going to process things just as quick as we can process them and cut out all the arbitrary wait times. Both for your initial registration, on the 10th day at midnight of the protest period, if your insurance is on file and your process agent is on file, authority should be granted at midnight on that 10th day of the protest period. There's no reason to wait longer than that. So we're going to improve the timeliness. Eliminate paper, potentially, with a rule. Not initially. When we roll out, I said early 2025, early FY25, that's release 1. Not all capabilities will be in release 1. Most capabilities will be in release 1, but there are some things that have to wait on the final rule. The final rule is going to take a lot longer than it will take us to do release 1. Paper is one of them. Paper applications. We really should not be accepting paper applications in the 21st century. Okay, so we want to eliminate that because it reduces the fraud. If we eliminate the paper and there's the right security checks in our system, it'll reduce the fraud, and that's our aim. So when the final rule is published, and then you can comment on this in the NPRM, the idea is we will eliminate paper applications. Improved access for existing registrants. You will actually have an account, just like you have a bank account. And you can go into that account and see the status of your authority, see the status of your US DOT number, see what forms you have filed, see what letters we have sent you, see what grant letters that we have provided to you, all in your account. Again, something that is seems pretty simple today because it's in just about every industry. We need to do that here. So you'll have a user account that only you can access. They'll have all the information that you need in your account. We need the ability to communicate with industry, with you. And we don't have that capability right now. Because in many cases, people don't want to put their correct email address in there because you get bombarded, or your correct telephone number. But with a new system with better security protocols, we want to get a good email from you, a good telephone number from you, and when we need to reach out to you to let you know about a change or an update, we can do this. I want to be able to hit a button and speak to all insurance filers, or hit a button and speak to all industry consultants or third-party service providers, whatever title you go by. Hit a button and talk to all hazmat carriers or all intermodal equipment providers. Whatever the demographic is of the population, we ought to be able to communicate with you on changes or updates. We should be able to do that with the right new system. The filing processes are going to be changed a little bit. For insurance filers, process agent filers, financial institution filing BMC 84s, 85s, that filing process will be different. It will look different. It will be more stringent. So this is not what the new system looks like. Okay? This is just some ideas as we think conceptually about what we want this thing to do, this new registration system. And there's even a choice missing up there to show you that this isn't nearly a final product. The first thing is, do I need to register? That will be a tool for those that don't know exactly whether they need to register or not. There'll be a tool that asks a simple 5 questions. And depending on how you answer those questions, you'll learn whether you need to register with FMCSA or you don't need to register with FMCSA. The second question will probably be, take me to the application. I'm ready to register. That option's missing up there right now. But for those of you that don't need to go through the tool, you need to register. We need a button that says, take me to the application. And then the third one is existing users. I'm already registered. I want to get into my account. And that's a third option up there. These are very conceptual. Here's what that tool might look like. 5 simple questions. First one being, and that is if you selected the first option on that other page, like, do I need to register? It'll take you to this, do I need to register tool? And you answer some simple questions. The first question is, please select the option that best describes your operations. And here's where we can make sure they don't wrongly select freight forwarder or intermodal equipment provider. They will clearly articulate what these mean. And these aren't the final words. It's not even like I said, it's conceptual. It's not what the final product will look like. But an easy tool that helps you make the right selections at the forefront. If you do need registration, if you don't need registration, you'll be told so. If you do need registration, you'll be taken to another screen. And it will just remind you of some of the things you need to register. Like, you're going to need your name and address and phone number. You're going to need to have an agreement or an arrangement with a blanket process agent, because the carriers in the new system will select their process agent, their blanket company. Right now, blanket companies file on behalf of carriers. In the new system, in accordance with statute, carriers will select their blanket company during the registration process. So you have to already have that business arrangement with a blanket company. And then you'll be given the blanket company's account number so that you can put in an account number to select your blanket company. That blanket company will receive an email. Carrier XYZ has designated you as their blanket company. Do you accept? Well, yeah, we talked yesterday. We got a business deal. I accept. Or no, I've never heard of Carrier XYZ. I reject. But the carrier is going to be one selected the process agent. And so all those reminders will be on a page like this. about what you need before you begin the registration process. Next slide, or next screen, probably takes you to something like this. Where's the identity verification? We don't even know what this will look like yet. We haven't contracted for the services yet. We're in the process. But it'll be a screen where you've got to input some data, and it will verify your identity with this provider of that capability. Not unlike what you do today with just about every other industry, whether it be the banking industry, the IRS, or what have you. You got to verify your identity when you set up your account. And you'll be told your identity is valid, you can continue, or your identity is not valid, you cannot continue. You've got to resolve whatever the issue is on the identity verification. And then it'll take you to another screen in the new registration system where it's going to verify your business information. And it's going to ask you for information about your business. We don't know what this screen's going to look like because we haven't contracted for the services yet. But you'll have to put in certain business information, and then it'll validate that your business exists. Because you shouldn't be able to register with FMCSA unless you've established the business first. Then the next slide may look something like this, or next screen in the application process. Would you like to designate a third party to complete your application on your behalf? Or industry consultant? I'm not sure what the terminology is that should be, but I think if I say third party service provider or industry consultant, you kind of know who I'm talking about, the person that completes the application for you and provides other services on top of that. Or would you like to complete it on your own? If you want to complete it on your own, it's going to allow you to continue. If you want to designate somebody to complete the application on your behalf, you're going to have a prearranged deal with them, and you're going to put in their account number because they will have provided you that account number. And it'll say, do you confirm that West Company Limited is who you want to complete the application on your behalf? Yes, that's the account number, because we want to make sure you put in the right number. Okay, that third party, that consultant, will get an email. Carrier XYZ has designated you to complete the application on their behalf. Do you accept? Yes, I accept. We talked yesterday. Or, never heard of them, I reject. So the third party goes in, let's say they accept, third party goes in, completes the application on your behalf. The applicant then has to go back in when the consultant is done and sign the oaths and verifications. So there's two things that the applicant has to do with the new system that they don't have to do today. One, they've got to go in and pass the identity and business verification before they pass it off to a consultant. And they got to come back in the end, verify what the consultant put in is correct, and sign the oaths and verifications. That is a change. But it's to protect you. It's to protect the industry. We have to do that. And then it allows the consultant or you to complete the application. It'll also be in a mobile-friendly format. And with a new system, I can't imagine completing today's form on a mobile device. But with a new system, you should be able to easily navigate and complete the application because it'll be a streamlined process. So it'll be mobile-friendly. What are some of the changes? What are some of the potential changes? Some of this will require the rulemaking. Number one, I'm not going to repeat it. It's on every slide. The USDOT number is a sole identifier. Okay, that's most likely going to happen. I don't even think that requires the final rule. It may, but it'll be in the NPRM. Safety registration. We are supposed to issue safety registration now, but our legacy system does not have the capability. All interstate motor carriers, whether they're for hire or private, will be required to have safety registration. It is a new type of registration that provides safety jurisdiction over that population. So you'll get your USDOT number, which is nothing more than an identifier. You'll get operating authority if you need it, and you will get safety registration. Potentially, what's written in the rule would be insurance filings are required for private hazmat and exempt for hire carriers. That is not required now, but in accordance with statute, it's supposed to be. Same thing with private hazmat and exempt for hires are going to have service plan. Might have to have process of service agent on file with FMCSA. Those are not required now. So those would be two changes for private carriers and exempt for hire carriers. Improved principal place of business verification, we're doing that now. It'll be even better in the new system. Fees are under analysis. I can't tell you what's going to happen with the fees, but that's part of it. We're building a new system. We're reevaluating. And no paper applications. Again, under consideration. Will be part of the rulemaking. That is my last slide, and I'm happy to take questions. Maybe go back and just, so we have some light up here. If you would not mind coming to the center of the room where there's a microphone, because they're recording this. There's a microphone set up right there in the middle. If you speak into that microphone, I'd be happy to take questions. You're not. Right there on the floor.
And while he's making his way to the microphone, I just want to, this is a good example in our view of a win-win. And you may not believe me because I'm from FMCSA, but we really do embrace those opportunities that we think are good for safety, but also good for business to make the registration process more efficient. This is one example. Another example is the task force that's taking place next door. If you weren't able to attend in the morning, you can go in the afternoon. It is the truck leasing task force, and it's really focused on lease-to-own agreements, leasing agreements, and discussing the elements of those from a perspective of what is a predatory lease or not. So those are two opportunities that I use here to talk about win-wins. With that, please, sir, ask your questions. Please identify yourself before you.
Is that microphone on? Thank you, Brennan.
Yeah, so my name is Jeff Miner, and one of the primary things we run into with a lot of our motor carrier clients is when they're first getting their operating authority, their DOT number, they are hesitant to want to put in their phone number, their email, because their information gets put out on Safer, but not just Safer, there's kind of some backdoor ways that some companies have been able to find where they have their information within a few seconds of them getting their authority. So they get hit with phone calls within a few seconds of their DOT number being assigned. And basically they get calls saying, hey, I'm so-and-so, you just got a DOT number, I work with the FMCSA, I'm here to complete your application, and then they end up giving the person money when they really don't need to. Is there anything in the works to help protect motor carriers from getting all of those phone calls and getting hit so quickly?
Yeah, a couple recommendations. Number one, because you're registering a business with the United States government, we're obliged to make that information public. Government Open Data Act. Again, registering a business. I would encourage the sole proprietors and independent operators out there not to put in their personal cell phone number as the business phone number, because you're going to get solicitation calls. I know because I own 5 trucking companies on paper. I don't own any trucking companies. But I registered trucking companies to go through the experience. And I registered a trucking company about 3 weeks ago. I've received 200 phone calls and text messages. 200. So we're going to help. One, I'm going to recommend that, again, we're going to publish the information because it's a business being registered with the United States government. But I would encourage you to be careful about what phone number you put in there. It's got to be legitimate. With the new system, it's going to validate that it is a real number that works. But it doesn't have to be your personal cell phone number. or personal email address. It should be a business email address or a business phone number. That'll help. Second thing, with the new system, there's going to be a delay between registration and new information being publicly available. So those two things will help, but I feel your pain. Yes, sir.
So I had to validate his question about that information. People get bombarded. But what about third-party providers as far as vetting them and having them register with FMCSAs?
Yes, sir.
What's going on?
So third-party service providers, industry consultants will have to have an account with FMCSA. They too will go through the identity verification and business verification process to establish an account with FMCSA so that we know they are who they say they are and their business is legitimate and registered. Once they establish the account with FMCSA, and we'll have to let them do that first, right? You can't have a carrier register before we allow the third-party consultant industry to register, so we're going to have to open that early, or open it first, allow all those consultants to register, get an account. That way you can then in turn support the rest of the industry. But yes, sir, there will be a registration process for them as well.
Will there be an update before we can get updates? Is that happening? Can we get back into the system some way or another? Should we get updates? Is that proceeding?
We're not going to open it to carriers until we have third parties that's registered to support them.
Right. So that updates for the third party. Can we get on a list of the
We do not want to provide a list of the third parties or the consultants on our registration site because that might show a bias towards one company or another. That's why we up front early in the application is going to tell you need to have a business arrangement with a process agent and or a third-party consultant agency because it's going to ask you for their account number during the registration process. And you will have already established a business relationship. If you want somebody to complete the application for you, you'll have their account number so that you can input their account number to continue the registration. And we will communicate as best we can with the entire industry as we roll out capability. Tom?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, Ken. So it's a really good point. I made the comment. Do you want to talk about the industry day coming up?
Yeah,
and I only say that because one of the primary objectives of this session is to get your feedback here as we talk about what we're planning to do. So there will be more opportunities, but I want you to highlight
Yes, sir.
if you wouldn't mind.
So we have what's called the Registration Modernization Stakeholder Days. We had Stakeholder Day number 1, that was in person at the DOT headquarters. We sent out a Federal Register notice inviting anybody that wanted to come into the building. We did have a cap on seating. We didn't reach the cap, but they came to the DOT headquarters, and the whole idea was to present this and then get their ideas of what they would like to see, what you would like to see in a new registration system. So we took notes the entire day, and we're incorporating those into the new system the best we can. We're going to have Industry Day number 2, Stakeholder Day number 2, and that is going to be tentatively May 29th. That will be virtual. That way more people can participate. And again, we will send out a Federal Register notice on a Stakeholder Day number 2. May 29th is a tentative date where we want to hear from industry on what we're building. So thank you for that.
And beyond that, if someone wanted to file comments online, I know they will be able to do it. You'll be able to do it in the context of the rulemaking effort, and that's a requirement because if we add a field or a few fields to the registration process or take away fields, we have to notify the public, allow for comment. But you can comment on any broader piece of that as part of the rulemaking, but are there other opportunities outside that to provide comments? I don't know the answer to this question, but beyond the industry day, I want people to focus on that.
So as part of Stakeholder Day number 2, we plan on having an email address where people can email their ideas and comments. Not just a one-shot done, one and done. We want to continue to offer opportunity to get feedback. So at Stakeholder Day number 2, we're going to announce an email address where you can send comments to. Unrelated to the rules, that'll be a separate process where you got to provide comments to the docket. But ideas on a new registration system, we will take anytime.
Ken, how do I sign up for industry day number 2?
Oh, so in the Federal Register notice, there will be a link that will take you to a registration page where you will put in some basic information, and then we'll send you the link for industry stakeholder day number 2. Yes, great question. But that'll be in the Federal Register notice. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So my name is Ines. I have a question about different kind of frauds out there and scams that are happening, and just wanted to know if FMCSA does anything about it. It's basically scammers would be sending letters to the company saying like, you are not in compliance. If you do not complete this training, you will be fined and so on. So do you guys know anything when it comes to that, or is that just civil?
That is a great question.
And how do you feel when they put your logo on those letters?
As far as letters coming to the address on file, that's going to happen. I don't know of a way to prevent that. When you register your business, the information is going to be public. You're registering a business with the United States government. You're going to get letters, solicitation letters, from a multitude of different entities. My wife asked me today on the company I registered 3 weeks ago, why are we getting all these letters at the house? I'm like, oh, I registered a trucking company. I needed to see what letters, what phone calls, what text I'll get. I don't know of a way to reduce that correspondence. I would just say you get, and this is true for every industry today, you have to be careful about every email, every phone call, every letter you get to determine whether it's valid or not. And that's true in every industry. I mean, I get solicitation calls and letters all the time at the house that are not related to DOT, but it's other fraudulent, potential fraudulent solicitations. And did I answer your second part? I didn't hear the second part of your question.
So just yesterday, for the first time, I got one of the letters from one of the clients, and actually logo is on there, which before they did not put the FMCSA logo on. So I just noticed for the first time that they are actually putting FMCSA logo.
Yeah. This echo in this room. Did you hear the question?
Yeah, I think generally, well, I'm gonna respond this way, and you tell me if I hit the mark. If it's blatant fraud, copyright infringement, they're representing themselves as FMCSA. We want to know that. We notify our attorneys. Depending on the extent and the scope of this, they get involved or they turn it over. They discuss with the Department of Justice shutting that down as they can. So it depends on the extent and the scope of it, and if it's blatant misrepresentation of that company's credentials. If they're misrepresenting themselves as FMCSA, you get this with auto lending services too, where they're very carefully worded and you have to read them carefully. They're not fraudulent, they're just very opaque. And then there's outright fraud. And we do put our attorneys on those cases.
And many times the website or the letter will have a disclaimer at the bottom. We're not associated with DOT. Now that disclaimer is in very small letters. But once our lawyers see that, they go, not much we can do. They've made the disclaimer.
I'd like to address the broker board issues with, we require registration, verification for a broker, for a carrier, but the broker boards are representing more and more of the freight that is shipped, representing the supply chain and filling those gaps. Do we need to consider registering, have the broker boards themselves held more accountable through registration of what they're doing and how they have to operate and be liable for promoting not only misinformation, but possibly illegal information?
Yeah. I'll tell you that, one, we don't have, FMCSA does not have the authority to regulate the load boards, the broker boards, the electronic bulletin board. There's several different names for it. That does not fall within our authority. However, in many cases, those broker boards, load boards are using FMCSA data. So if we improve the security and we're validating identity and validating businesses, the load boards will have more accurate data to post, and I think that will help.
Yeah, and, you know, I don't know which specific load board you're talking about, but we have good communications with many, and that obviously it's important to their business model that they authenticate, so they're very interested in our modernization efforts, but I'd be happy to talk to you about, I would love to hear specific input from you. Why don't you come up and see me after the session? Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It depends, I'm sure, on the individual board.
Abstain, sit down.
Ryan Bunnell. What I'm wondering about specifically is on the VOC3, is it going to talk about private exempt for hire carriers needing it? Is that going to be retroactive for all to have, or just anybody that's new registered?
Going forward.
Going
But
forward.
again, that, you'll have an opportunity to comment on that during the NPRM. That is not a final decision. But yes, it'll be going forward.
I apologize for not having a question, but I've trained my staff that if they get an email soliciting something that wants to charge us a fee, if it doesn't say .gov, it goes in the dumpster.
That's a great idea. It needs to say .gov. And oh, by the way, we're not going to send you something and charge you a fee. We just don't. There's an initial fee as part of the registration when you're in our system, but we're not going to send you an email or a letter charging you a fee to do something when you're able to do it all online. In most cases for free.
And Ken, if people have questions about the authenticity of a letter,
Oh,
encourage them to call the person.
absolutely. You can send them to the Office of Registration. There's an email address online under the registration website, and we'll take a look at it. We answer those questions all the time. I got this letter, is it real? In 99.9% of the cases, they're not real. Or they're not from DOT, let me put it that way. They may be real, but they're not from FMCSA.
Yeah, it may not be fraud, but we encourage you to check the authenticity of that with our call center, with our division office. We have a division office in every state. If you call them, they will help you in this regard too. If you're just not sure, it's better to be safe than sorry.
My name is Dale Prax. My question is about, when there's plenty of companies now coming out that maybe don't trust the data they're getting from Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Companies like Highway, Carrier Sure, all these companies are saying, I'm going to do a double check because we want to make sure there's no fraud. So they're adding subjective things like number of inspections. When's the last time you had inspection? All these other subjective data, or saying we're not going to use a new carrier unless they've been around for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, all subjective. Are you saying with the new registration system that if they're FMCSA approved, they'll be FMCSA compliant, and we don't need those third parties, and the DAC board wouldn't have to worry about it, or the truck stop wouldn't have to worry about it, because you're saying these guys are compliant, they're good to use?
We're going to make it a lot better. I don't think anybody can say that their system or process is 100% fraud proof. However, I'm confident in saying when we introduce these identity verification services and business verification service, it's going to be difficult to get FMCSA registration and authority when you're not who you say you are or you don't have a legitimate business. It'll be extremely difficult. Therefore, those load boards will most likely have reliable data. 100%? No way. But a lot better, yes, sir.
And we're coming over here.
Oh, thank you, Brent.
Hi, good morning. My name's Ann. Can you tell me what is valid when it comes from FMCSA? So we signed up, I did the application, immediately got hit with text and everything. Then we've gotten a few things in the mail. How do I know that that truly is FMCSA? Because they do have the logo. The envelope really doesn't have FMCSA on it, but we haven't gotten any other paperwork. So is there a clue that I would know it is truly from you and not from one of the third parties?
I think you would have to have experience with FMCSA letters to recognize if you're new, what's good, what's not, or what's from the agency, what's not. And so you're right. There are cases where they're using our logo, they're using a title, they're even using a Washington, D.C. address. I would say, if in doubt, call our call center, and we'll help you determine, because they'll just look in the system and go, yep, we sent you that letter on this date. Or no, we didn't send you that letter. So I would say, when in doubt, call our call center.
What is the way that you communicate? Is it just through mail, or could we expect a phone call or something from FMCSA?
I don't know of any cases where we call registered entities. I really don't. Except maybe the new entrant audit to schedule the audit, but I think that's all done online now too.
Yeah, well, they'll reach out through multiple methods to schedule an audit, so, but
They do still call.
there'll be, yeah, they will call, they'll send an email, and if there's, they try 3 different attempts by different means to reach you. But if you ever have a question, I don't know what state you're in, but if you're in Kentucky, you could just type in contact information, FMCSA Kentucky office, and our address and phone number will come up. You can also call our centralized call center just to check. Those would generally be the only, unless you're on a moderate or high risk list, or you've received a warning letter from us and your safety performance is subpar, that's when we'll start reaching out in instances to, we'll send you the warning letter by mail, but if you're really subpar, you'll start getting phone calls to schedule an investigation, but that's very rare. With that said, it's your first, the first attempt will probably be related to scheduling a new entrant audit, and that's going to be anywhere from 3 to 4 to 8 or 9 or 11 months into operation.
Upon initial registration, the only phone call you should get from FMCSA is probably that new entrant audit, but we don't call for any other reason.
And it might be our state partner or us, so they might identify them as with the State Department of Public Safety or the state police on behalf of FMCSA to schedule this new entrant audit. And it's really an educational attempt. It's not enforcement focused. It's, hey, we just want to get you off on the right foot. You have some performance data in the system. We see you're operating. Can you answer some questions about how you're operating, that kind of thing. So it's collaborative. It's to really, to get you off on the right foot to ensure you're compliant as you're just starting off.
Hi, my name is Natalie. Lately as consultants, we see a lot of fraudulent emails in regards to the safety audit. There is an email in regards to you're being audited, the safety audit, click here. And the site where they click mimics Safer. And it's asking for the PIN and it's asking for the EIN number, and on many occasions we have reported it. Are you guys doing anything about it?
Yeah, we've, our IT department, when we saw the first one of those, and again, I'll repeat the question. There is a phishing email, PHIS, a phishing email that's going out by somebody that's new entrant audit related. And it looks like it's coming from an FMCSA URL. It looks legitimate. It's a mirror image of our website, but it's asking for stuff we would not ask you for. It's asking for your social security number. It's asking for your company official name. It's asking for your PIN number. With those 3 things, they can access your FMCSA account. We don't ask for those 3 things on any website. It's a phishing attempt. Our IT department has shut it down a couple times, but it keeps popping back up. So if on the we're trying to inform everybody about this. You go to our registration website, the first thing that pops up is a warning about this phishing attempt. Trying to warn people, don't fall for it. But our IT department will continue to try to tackle, but it does keep popping up. I'm glad you brought that up.
My name is Tommy Rook. Talk to you about the MC number going away. Of course, that was promised in 1998. I think I had this. I've said that 3 times, and I'll wipe it away because I teach insurance companies about that stuff. Second part of it, this is not new because these people you want, these new proof of insurance, has to meet endorsement of the policy anyway with MCS90. But the problem is now with the filing, if you do not have the filing, your authority becomes revoked. Part of it. Now that you're going to have the hazmat and the exempt, will the DOT number be revoked or not? So that's the consequences of not having insurance filing, is your authority gets revoked. Now these new companies, will that still be that process?
similar, but they don't have authority to revoke. So it'll be a US DOT number that becomes inactive and safety registration that becomes inactive.
So be inactive, because now the only two times the number's inactive is you don't do the 150 up.
That's right.
And you don't pay UCR fees.
That's right.
So
If that piece of the rule, I might want to.
okay, I'm just putting it from the side I deal with, getting insurance out there.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Got a couple minutes.
If there are any other questions. Ken, you want to talk just while anybody's welcome to come up and ask other questions, but start thinking about maybe 3 takeaways for this group. I hope you find this session valuable. The identity verification and business verification piece that he talked about will come later this year. That'll be before the new registration system. Second takeaway is the new registration system and this modernized functionality and look. And then third will be a rulemaking, and then mixed in here concurrently are opportunities for you to provide it.
Thank you. I'm glad my boss is here to support me.
I was going to give that question to you, but I already came up
Oh,
with
I'm
an
glad.
answer, so I gave it to myself.
Thank you for being.
Next question.
Dakota Polkowska, Springfield's Pink Cheetah Express. You just mentioned something about audits. Last year, I had suggested that brokers be audited because they were not being audited. Are they going to be audited? Is that what you're saying for new registrants, or to get us all up to par? 800,000 of us registrants already there. They're part of the registration. They have to be registered as a broker. Are you going to, or have you put in place a type of audit for them, maybe mid-year? Because in the beginning, they don't need anything except, to have loads for us, and you're not going to have anything to audit. But once you have complaints coming in, they would need an audit. So is an audit on the way for brokers?
I don't think we have the authority, I'm saying think because I'm not a lawyer, don't think we have the authority to audit brokers. However,
Why not?
there is a statutory requirement requiring brokers to have a certain education or experience requirement before being granted registration. We do have a petition from industry asking us to invoke those statutory requirements, education and experience requirements, and the agency is considering. It would require a rulemaking to implement, but the agency is considering.
I have a suggestion. I'm also a contractor in Connecticut and New York, and in order to work in Connecticut, you have to be licensed. So let's just say you're broker, you have broker authority, but then you have all these other people that work under you that probably came out of prison. They are telemarketers in the past. They know how to get a deal closed. So what about those little people that work for the real person who has the broker authority, having some kind of investigation on them, or they have to be registered? Because in Connecticut, you can't even sell anything to anyone else unless everybody who works under you is licensed. So I'm suggesting that, because just the broker, he's working, in the tower, and the little people on the ground are the ones that are giving us the problems as carriers. So why are they not even at this point have to be registered or have to even be known? You don't even know who these people are. You just have the broker name, but you have nobody who works for them. And those are the people causing the problems in this industry.
I think it will help, and we're requiring all entities, to include brokers, to go through the identity verification, verifying they are who they
And
say
their
they are.
workers?
And the business has to be verified, okay? Now, you're asking if they hire a person, is that person authorized to act on their behalf? I'm not sure we can control all of that. We need to consider that.
We need to definitely consider that.
Yeah.
My other thing is, I suggest, if you are not using it, because I haven't seen that in your PowerPoint presentation, FMCSA should be on the way of using AI. Artificial intelligence could possibly cross-reference phone numbers that are doing something in a red flag, maybe in a complaint, maybe an email or something, the extension of the email, something to see that this person or this entity is in Russia, is in Czechoslovakia, is somewhere else and not here. And I just wanted to know if you're using or thinking of using artificial intelligence.
The identity verification services that we're going to use are going to be top-notch. And it's not
Yes.
unlike when you register with the IRS or you go through TSA at the airport. They're going to be legitimate checks. And I think we're going to be able to prevent the vast majority of, let's say, foreign actors that don't live here trying to get registration for the purposes of fraud. So these identity and business verification checks, I think, are going to go a long ways towards better securing those that can get registration.
And are brokers and freight forwarders allowed to live outside of the United States? Because I have a lot of people I'm dealing with that are not in America. I have found them in other countries, and when I threaten their, that I'm going to expose them, that they're not here, they suddenly decided to pay.
Yeah, I want to consult with our legal beforehand, Dakota. I'll get you an answer to that.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think it's more about having an established business, legitimate business here in the United States.
With a U.S. address.
Yeah, with a U.S. address. Ownership is a different story. Investment funding is a completely different story. But we'll get back to you on that. Please give us your card or contact information. We'll get back to you. Last question. Thank you, sir.
Very quickly, there's the Social Security number scam calls, or like FTC scam calls. So those administrations have chosen to put out some information on the ways that they do communicate, like we'll never call you, we never do X, Y, Z, and it just occurs to me there's a lot of questions today where you're saying, no, we don't do that, no, we don't do this. Is FCMA considering putting out something on, these are our approved communications, if it isn't one of these, then it's likely fraud. FTC recently, Lena Khan was talking about it.
Yeah, we're going to do more messaging. We do some messaging at the beginning of the registration process, at the end of the registration process, warning applicants they're going to receive solicitation calls, and the fact that FMCSA will not call you and charge a fee for the service. But we can't ever do enough of that, so we will do more of that. Yes, sir.
It's a great point. It's that's one good example, what we're talking about here, of where Congress in our last authorization bill said to FMCSA, we know your focus is your safety mission. We want you to take on these other initiatives. Next door, there's a truck leasing task force. They're recognizing the relationship between certain types of lease agreements and safety performance. Hey, take a look at compensation methods. There's a whole committee and study going on about how drivers are compensated and whether that's good for safety. That group issues a final report between July and September of this year. We're doing an updated study on detention time and its relationship to safety. We know this has been a market failure for you, the drivers, for a long time. You have to wait. It's free labor to the shipper. It's another thing Congress said. Please take another updated look at this. And to your point about consumer guidance, getting into business and consumer guidance for you so you can operate more safely and be free of fraud is just another example where Congress has asked us to go further beyond our safety mission to help you, the industry stakeholders, and we're happy to do it.
Thank you very much for coming and allowing us to pass along some changes and updates coming, hopefully for your benefit. So thank you.